So, hey Sam, thanks for joining me on another interview here on Wednesday for the group.
Of course, Corey. Thanks for having me again.
You've been pretty active on our page, which is awesome, or on our group. We had, your first interview, which went over well, but then you had your awesome machine gun shoot. How was that?
That was great. I love that.
Was that enjoyable? Did you like shooting up those bills?
I love it, man. And the figurative image of doing it was just perfect. Just perfect. It just needs to. It needs to be have holes punched in it, and then somebody needs to put it on fire. Get rid of
the rest of the way. Sadly, we were in an indoor range, so we couldn't light it on fire. But, yeah, I think we did a pretty good number to it.
Yeah.
So after your first interview and your other things, and other candidates have had, Rich had his interview as well. People have had some follow-up questions and such, so thought we would dive into some of them.
Sure.
Yeah, so, and for our group members to know, I'm just reading off the questions that you commented right here, which there's no way the camera will pick that up. So, let's look here. Oh, first one, and I think we kind of mentioned this earlier. Joseph, I'm going to butcher his name, Rakow. I think Joseph Rakow would like to hear about if he would be fixing Oregon's concealed carry reciprocity. Does he plan on honoring other states? In doing so, the hope would be that we can carry in more states. So
yes, of course. We traveled to Kentucky, or have traveled to Kentucky by car and back, and you don't know if you're breaking the law or not, depending on where you are. It's crazy that every state has a different requirement for a permit. It's nuts. And so, yeah, as governor, I'm not sure what my powers would be, but I think they'd be pretty good, and I would want to work with other governors. And
I'm sure you would have to. There would have to be some governor work or legislation to change our reciprocity. Yeah, it's kind of Oregon's weird with that.
Yeah, I know it's a kind of a strange thing, and I think it almost depends on the officer that picks you up, how it goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everybody knows it's screwy. It's just another. Don't get me started, but it's just another example of government chaos. And whether you're talking about guns or forests or PERS or, foster care, it's just chaos. And what I'll try to do, what I will do, is bring some orderliness to all of it through my department heads. And this has to get under control. And we need to go back to the simplicity of the Second Amendment, of course, and we've had that discussion before. So much can be fixed by just going back to the basics and simplifying instead of putting Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid on
I just don't think anyone's really addressed it. Obviously, with Democratic leaders, no one's addressed it. I don't think it would be too horrible, but would be really great. So then we don't all have to get Utah permits to carry outside of Oregon. And then people outside of our state should be able to come in and carry. No one can do that unless they're in a border state right now. So if you're from Kentucky, you can't. Your Kentucky license, there's no way it's legal in Oregon. So it's just weird. Yeah. So that'd be cool. And that was a great question by Joseph there.
No, I'll just add 40% of gun owners in Oregon are Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 40, 60 is not that far off from being even.
That's a lot. Well, again, Oregon is a unique state. It is hard. You can't pigeonhole a Democrat and you can't pigeonhole a Republican here. But it's obviously not going to be in a Democratic governor's, best interest.
No, it's not.
That route. Naturally. We had a really good, let's see here, from Matt Chihulio. How do you feel about repealing the Hughes Amendment, and doing things with the NFA and such? He said bonus points if you know what those are. I can remind you if you don't. That is not a big deal. Hughes Amendment was 1986, was the machine gun ban off the NFA that Reagan pushed in. So, what are your views on the NFA, the National Firearms Act in general? The $200 tax stamp to get a suppressor, for instance.
Well, I don't know the details on that, but I'll tell you, it's a federal law, and I'm going to support the federal law and do what I can to change it if it needs to be changed. But I tell people when they get into the esoteria of some of these issues. I don't know yet. I got to get inside the machine and see.
That's a great answer. At least it's an honest answer.
Truth. And, maybe it makes me look stupid, but I don't care. Nobody has all the answers to everything.
Yeah.
I am a pro Second Amendment guy. There are some limits on what we can do, obviously, and I will follow the law, whatever the law is. And as far as the $200 fee and so forth, I really do need to get inside of it and take a look at that. But I would like to see reciprocity. I would like to see no restrictions on the Second Amendment and on down the line. And if that's a general kind of a escape answer, I apologize for that, but that's kind of what I have to do right now.
Well, but that's honest. If you don't know, you don't know. That's how it goes. And then the follow-up question, maybe on this part of the NFA, you might, this is a very common one. Ask Sam if he plans on deregulating suppressors from the NFA. So that's a big thing. So the NFA does hold machine guns and it holds short-barreled rifles and holds suppressors. And at the federal level, we tried to pass, gun owners tried to get HPA through, which was the Hearing Protection Act. Like in Europe, suppressors or silencers aren't even regulated. It's really interesting. Like you could just go into a store and just buy one. But for some reason they are here. So I don't know if you know of any of that legislation or if you would support, HPA.
I know basically that legislation, and I wonder how successful it would be to go in and try to get that rescinded. I don't know. The question would be why. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is it might be a difficult thing to get to have happen.
Yeah, well, it has been.
Why do we need suppressors on guns? Mm-hmm. That's what you run into in the real world. It might be a difficult thing. I think that there shouldn't be any restrictions on the second, but I'm a pragmatic guy too. Yeah. And I think our viewers here have probably realized they'd probably have to be bundled into something else as a single issue. It would never fly. It just would never fly in the real world.
Right at the state level, that'd be hard. Federally, though, hopefully HPA goes. Well,
hopefully we can do something on the federal level that'll bundle a lot of these things together.
Right, because you would still have to work with Dems and stuff on that. So we have this is from William Saunderson. This is a kind of a. I think this will be right up your alley. He asked, and I'll just read it, it's lengthy. I would ask about the ineffectiveness of the current gun laws proven by the rash of felon in possession arrests in Portland, not to mention the increase in stabbings, particularly around mass transit. This is because the Portland DAs and judges drop charges on most of the criminals or give them pathetically light sentences, thereby demonstrating that criminal behavior will not be punished. So basically, he's asking for your comment on our current laws not being enforced.
And yet Mike Strickland goes to jail for 12 days and is doing everything he could to ruin his life because he pulled a weapon. And that was all staged, of course. It's insane. We need to follow the law, and we need to enforce the laws, and that's it. And if there's no punishment for bad behavior, there's going to be more bad behavior, and I hate even saying that. It's almost a platitude. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. What the police in Portland, for example, would like to be able to do is enforce the law without getting in trouble for it. And the law is simple. And the law is real simple. And people should go to jail when they do bad stuff, and there'll be a whole lot less bad stuff. Will I be a law and order governor, a law and order leader? Yes, I will. I will, because you're not gonna stop this bad behavior if there's no consequences. That's me, and that's the way I'll be. Right. And I think the state police and the city is the city, but the police that I have an effect with will like working with me.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I thought that was a good question because that hasn't been brought up really in the Oregon political sphere as much when you hear about the talking points. But enforcing the current gun laws we have, or enforcing and not letting violent criminals just walk is that just blows my mind.
Society's become real strange in the last 10 years. You're kind of a weirdo if you want to enforce the laws. You're kind of a weirdo if you want to enforce the immigration laws. And it's gotten to the point, if you support President Trump, what's wrong with you?
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. And we conservatives have been intimidated. But following the law, why is it a weird thing?
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
That shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Yeah, partisan issue, I guess. Yeah, okay.
Well, it shouldn't be though. It's weird. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got there. That was gosh, there's so many comments, which is great because people actually care. Oh, great question from Rob Price here. Do you support the Oregon counties with a Second Amendment preservation ordinance?
If that's what's necessary, of course.
Nice.
Sure.
Awesome.
If that's how we have to go around things, that's what we'll do. Of course. Yeah, anytime.
Fantastic.
Any place. Yeah.
And then he had a follow-up. If so, do you think that they are legal and enforceable if Brown signed Bill 42 and 43? So let's say, we got full apocalypse. They get on the ballot, they get passed, and she is literally enforcing that law. Do you think that those counties are legal and enforceable?
When you get right down to it, the sheriff has got a lot of power.
Yeah, I mean, Coos County, through the universal background check, they haven't enforced that at all. So,
yeah, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, so I'll beg out of this one a little bit too,
right.
But I get the power of the sheriff in a county, and that's a lot of power if you really look into it and take things apart and follow the law and follow the statutes and the structures that we have legally in the state. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean, to help answer Rob too, from my perspective, was that universal background check situation went through 2 years ago in a couple counties. And I know Coos County was like, no, we're not doing it. So, and from my understanding,
they didn't arrest Coos County,
right? And I don't think the state police are doing anything extra, but I could be wrong, and other people could, interject and comment on this. But that is a really good question, though. That was, yeah.
Now, your audience, our audience, I belong to the audience here, 43 and 44. We don't know if they're going to get on the ballot. Let's assume they are. We need to start prepping everybody we know to vote in November.
That's the big thing.
It'll be a great turnout, and in that great turnout for something very, very important, like killing these two IPs, in doing that, we will get our government back from the progressive far left. And that's maybe 15% of our population. And we know who they are. But we need to change the House and the Senate. A lot of this legislation that needs to be rescinded is legislation. Well, legislation can't be rescinded unless the legislature does it. There's a limit to how much I can do. It is so critical to get the House and the Senate as part of this package. And any of the gubernatorial candidates that aren't foaming at the mouth and talking about it all the time, the idea of a red trifecta, meaning the House, the Senate, and the governor's seat are red, you don't want to vote for those folks. We need to take the whole thing back. And with IP 43 and 44, that is going to drive our vote. That is really, really going to drive our vote. We'll not only defeat those IPs, we'll take the government back and get rid of this silliness. I don't care what you're talking about. Sanctuary state, the situation with fish and wildlife and on down, all the different 60 departments, things have to be simplified so we have better access to the forests. We can carry our guns when we want. And we have to put guns in schools, we'll put guns in schools. Obviously, that has to happen in some form. So I just want to interject here how important it is to look forward to November as a sweep, as a revolution, to take things back and get them simplified and back to normal, which was previous 3 decades ago, over 3 decades ago. Things were pretty
okay. A Republican governor since 1986, right?
Yeah, 87. Yeah, 87 or January. So yeah, and I'm not saying Republicans having a Republican governor and House and Senate will solve all the problems. But you know what? Solve 90% of them. From my standpoint, we need to get back to individual sovereignty. And isn't that what the Second Amendment is about?
100%.
Here's something. I got a guy in Italy who works for me. I got 4 guys in Europe, 3 in Italy and 1 in Romania. And there was a political party over there that did very, very well in the recent elections. Now, they don't have guns over there.
Right.
Now, Marcello and Fabio were here. I got my 30-30 over there. I pulled out a handgun and said they'd never seen a gun before. And they kind of stood back from it. Oh, and they touched it. I mean, it was what you'd expect.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
guns in society. So one of the planks in the platform of this political party was, if anybody comes in your house, you can do whatever you want to them and not go to jail. Mm-hmm. Because if somebody breaks in your house in Italy and you hurt them, you're going to jail.
Yep.
I mean, right away. And they don't have guns, so this is a little different. And this got me to thinking, they could club them, they could stab them, they could, break their necks, whatever. And the law is that if somebody breaks in your house, you can do whatever you want to them and not go to jail.
Yeah, and that's what
to say that. It's more than the Second Amendment. It's individual sovereignty to run your life the way you want to run it. And the Second Amendment, not the First Amendment, but the Second Amendment is right there in a mechanical way to remind us of individual sovereignty. Why America is so great, because we're individuals and we can run our lives the way we want to run them. That's and this idea, talking about bump stocks and large capacity magazines, I don't want to hear about it. Yeah. Don't start infringing on my individual sovereignty in that area or any other area of my life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What happens in the bedroom? I mean, get off my case and stop taxing me so much and all the other stuff. But this is about individual sovereignty, ultimately.
So that leads into another good question. So on the individual sovereignty, here's a tough one. Here's a curveball. You don't have to answer this because I don't know. It's an interesting question, but Janet Jacobson says there was a guy in this group earlier that wanted to know if IP43 passed, would Sam capitulate or become a felon? So would you hand him in, or would you have a boating accident, basically?
Would I have a boating accident?
You just happen to store your firearms on a boat.
Here, this is I want you to meet somebody. I'm not trying to avoid the question. There's Justy Boy. He believes in the Second Amendment, don't you, bud?
Well, he's a beagle, so.
No, I'll enforce the law, whatever it is. Sorry about that.
But the question was, would you, as a citizen, just as a citizen, what is your opinion? Would you turn your weapons in if IP43 passed?
Oh, man.
Because that's what we're all facing. Like, as regular, everyday gun owners, like that 30-30 you have back there someday could be, I don't think it's included because it's not semi-auto in 43, but, it's got a tube magazine that could hold more than 10 rounds. Someday that could be on the chopping block. Do you turn that in, or do you refuse? You don't have to answer because I know it sets some legal precedents, but it is a really good question.
Yeah, if it's the law, I'm going to turn it in. If that's the law, I'm going to turn it in. But I'll do everything in my power to prevent it from ever becoming a law. I can't, as the governor, lead some kind of a revolution and set a standard like that. I got to follow the law, whatever it is, and that's what I'll do. I got some issues about capital punishment, but if that's what the law is, I'm going to follow the law. There's some issues I may not personally believe in, but the one issue that we have is the rule and law of the land.
Right.
And if it's the law, then it has to be followed. But we can try like heck to change that law if it's wrong. And this is what, I'm just a candidate for governor here. So I can say all kinds of things about IP43 and IP44. And I'll do everything within me to prevent that from happening. And the way to do that is to get the vote out.
Yeah.
That's what I can do, is excite the base and get the vote out so that doesn't happen. But what I want people to know out there as governor, I'm not going to go rogue and do weird things like break the law. I'm not going to do.
And I think everyone in the group should interpret your answer that you would turn them in is that you're running for governor, and incriminating yourself in the future is not really advantageous. So I hope people understand that.
Yeah, but it's true. So what you really want me to do is answer the question as a citizen. Would I turn it in?
Yeah.
I want to go to this cold dead finger thing, you know.
Yeah, you want to, but you're running for governor. No,
I'm running for governor. Come on, cut me some slack here.
Exactly. But Jeanette, solid question. You got us on that one.
That's a kind of a politician's answer, and I hate that. But
it's okay. It's still. I would hope they understand. If they don't, they don't. That's fine. Yeah. You might want to bring Diana in on this one. Got a question about women.
Good. Let me get her.
Yeah.
Remember, she's got hollow points in her 38.
No, there you go.
Yeah.
Hello.
This is Diana.
Yeah, so for members of the group, this is Diana, Sam Carpenter's wife, also probably doing a lot of work in this campaign, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, traveling Oregon.
So this question applies to both of you, because we have in this group, we have 30% are women in the group. Out of 117,000, 30% are still women, which, for a firearms group, that's very high. That's very high.
Good.
So, but the question leads to, we'd love to see that number increase. What do you think we could do to encourage women to take their safety into their own hands, as well as encourage their involvement in the firearms community?
Well, I think also just times are changing. And I think a couple things. Number one, you're seeing more and more women who live on their own. Before I met Sam, I was a single mom and lived by myself for 24 years. And so I had to make sure I could protect myself and protect my daughter. And so I took classes, I got myself ready, I was prepared. But I think in a culture where you're seeing more and more single women, I think that's I think that will drive people to the classes. I think is that when we begin to take the fear out of guns,
then
women can become more comfortable with them. And I think just getting that dialogue started is another very good thing to get more women in the group.
Right.
So, and I think what surprised me actually when I kind of got going to shooting ranges and did target practice, I didn't expect it to be fun. My dad would take me out. Because he used to say, Diana, having a gun does you no good. Being able to use a gun is what you need to do.
Right.
So, he said, if you don't know how to use it, it's just as much of a weapon if you throw it.
Yeah.
So he said, you need to learn how to use it. But once he got me using it, then we started having a lot of fun.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's began to enjoy it. And then he just took the fear out of it. I lived in a very rural part of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And I could have screamed for an hour and nobody would have heard me in my house because I lived in a very rural area. And my dad used to tell me, he gave me a shotgun and he used to taught me how to use it. And he said, Diana, if somebody breaks into your house with a shotgun, you don't have to say a word. It'll do the talking for you. So, and that just always gave me a lot of comfort knowing that I had that, I knew how to use it, and I could protect myself and my daughter.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fear is an interesting thing. Colian Noir brought up in one of his videos when he's talking to women who might be anti-gun or who might not want any involvement. Maybe they're not anti-gun, but they're just not, firearms aware of how they can't ever see themselves taking a life, and that's fine, or using a firearm defensively. But then when he asks, well, would you be able to defend your children? And they're like, yes.
In a heartbeat.
And it's really interesting is how we change that mentality of immediately putting yourself in the position of being a victim or not being able to do that, and change that to this, levels the playing field.
Yeah. I don't want to kill anyone, but if you hurt my daughter, then I will kill you.
Yeah, game over.
It's kind of that simple. So.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate that answer. Does Sam have anything to add onto onto that question?
On building
getting women
involved.
Yeah, encouraged to take safety in their own hands and encourage more involvement in the community, firearms community.
Well, once this debate about what we're going to do with the Second Amendment is over in our favor, it will become okay to carry a weapon. Mm-hmm. And I think that women need to form their own groups sometimes and have fun with it. And it is actually kind of fun at a shooting range, is that it would be kind of cool to see women's groups, like there's men's groups, women's groups, to go out there and just have fun with it. Learn, get comfortable with the weapon, get comfortable with it, take it apart, put it back together, classes and so forth. That's no different than men, really. Yeah. But I think it would be fun. Women look at life a little different than men do, and they would look at a weapon and its use a little differently probably. And I think it would be fun for women to get together as women, sometimes at least, and have some fun with it. And of course, we encourage mixed groups and all that. I'm not suggesting segregate.
No, but there's the ranges do women's nights or ladies' nights, and
sure,
for sure.
It's like anything else, Yeah.
So, is there anything either of you want to add here to close it up? Because I'm at the end of all the really solid. All the other questions are very similar, to a point.
When Sam and I first met each other, he was in my car, and actually I picked him up at the airport, and we were driving to my house in Kentucky. His first time he'd ever been to Kentucky, and I had him getting something out of my glove compartment, and he reached down there and he pulled out. I kept a revolver in my car because I traveled so much, and I just always have a gun in my car. And so he picked it up, and he's like, "Yeah, nice gun. It's a really nice gun." And he was looking at it, and he said, "You've got hollow points in here." And I said, "Sam," I said, "honey, you're in the Bible Belt now, and we believe it's better to give than receive." And so that's kind of how, when we first got started in his introduction into people in Kentucky. I always said everyone in Kentucky has guns.
Yeah.
So
and a lot of Oregonians too. I mean, it's not like our stereotype, but there's a ton of I think the number is like 250,000 registered concealed carry holders right now currently in the state. Like it's nuts. So, well, I appreciate having both of you guys on. Thanks, Kevin, for answering the question there, Diana. That's awesome. I know that'll add a different factor in there for people here and see that other side. And
good deal.
Basically, I don't think we'll have time to do another one for the primary. So
that's all right. We'll do one for the general. Hey,
there you go. So good luck.
Hey, Tori, thanks so much, and thanks for the fun up at the shooting range. That was a blast.
It was great.
Diana enjoyed it too.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, you guys have a great night.
All right.
Okay.
See ya. Bye.